morning, good afternoon, good evening, yWhales, wherever in the world you are today. So it is April 25th, 2024. The world is in absolute chaos, and we couldn't be having more fun as builders and kind of innovators in the Web3 space. It is amazing to kind of watch, despite global, conflicts, despite, tons of unrest and political change really around the world, blockchain is winning. And I know that doesn't always look that way in the cryptocurrency markets. It may not always look that way in the news. But every single day I'm hearing about more projects, more initiatives, and more integrations into blockchain-based commerce. And that's really what we're here to talk about today is like, where is the world changing? How is frontier tech changing? And how is blockchain going to be kind of in the middle of all this? And the rules haven't really been formed yet. My panel today is absolutely world-class, and I don't want to go into any more further other than letting them introduce themselves. We just passed the halving. So Bitcoin is sitting around 64K ish. It was almost a non-event in the markets, more deeply affected by drone strikes and other things that are happening around the world. But quite simply, Bitcoin is holding strong in the 60s. And that's something that I think everyone is excited about. And it does generally take a couple months for the halving to have true effect on market pricing. That being said, let's bring in our panel today and kind of start that conversation. Cristian, let's kick it off with you, sir.
Hello, everyone, and thanks, Jay, for the invitation. So I'm a technical co-founder in the space of Web3, but in the space of crypto since 2012. Actually, this is how I got into this space, mostly on the academia route. I have my PhD in cryptography, and then I switched more to this startup life, where I run this company called OMNIA Protocol. It's a decentralized RPC provider. We are processing at this moment roughly 1 billion requests a day. And in terms of volumes, there are $3 billion that passes our system every month. We have roughly 3.6 million active users, which are relying on our RPC provider. And our mission is basically to empower users with some security controls without having to know all the technical stuff behind the scenes. So we kind of protect the user that relies on our RPCs. That's pretty much it about myself. I'm curious to find out more today and to speak on the events that actually just happened a few days ago.
Awesome. Thank you. Hristo.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Jay, for having me here. So my name is Hristo Piyankov. I am the founder of FinDaS, and we are a tokenomics consulting company. I myself come from a background in traditional finance where I have spent over 13 years as a data scientist, essentially doing data science and machine learning models. And when I came to crypto, the first thing I saw is that there is very little to data-driven tokenomics design which is going around. A lot of projects are just copy-pasting what somebody else has done successfully in the past, and pretty much I wanted to bring the data-driven approach and the economics-driven approach to designing token economies into crypto. We have worked with over 250 projects in the space, including some quite big ones, and we have a lot of experience working with layer 1s, layer 2s, DeFi protocols, CeFi, and whatever else there might be. So that's it in a nutshell. Looking forward to the episode.
Awesome. Hartej.
Hey, thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me on again. I always enjoy being on the yWhales, and it's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Hartej Sawnhey. I'm the founder and CEO of both Zokyo and Mamoru AI. I've been sitting on the intersection of blockchain and cybersecurity since 2016. Primarily, we're known for auditing smart contracts, auditing blockchain protocols, layer 1s and 2s, and we do penetration testing, cryptography audits. We have a labs team that designs and reviews token economics. We've done some significant investments in the space as well. And since last January 2023, I've been at the helm of an AI cybersecurity company where we're focused on institutional digital asset risk management. It's called Mamoru AI, MAMORU.ai. And Mamoru's focus is on using AI to detect and remediate security threats and anomalies before a transaction even hits the blockchain. So before anything even happens, we're using AI's power to both detect and remediate any security threats or anomalies. And the focus is on helping institutions that are deploying capital on chain, as well as the builders, the big DeFi solutions with big TVL, layer ones and layer twos, the entire bout, and we write custom AI agents for them. And we're very excited to get this to the market. We're going to be a little more public about this in the upcoming months. I look forward to sharing more on the next yWhales. Thanks so much for having me on again. I'm excited to talk about the latest happenings in the space. Indeed, crazy times.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely crazy. And I love the concept you're talking about is the uses of AI. Everyone, like I saw like Wendy's is using it for their drive-through. Like AI is on everything now. Like, a couple of years ago it was NFTs and this, and, everything moves in cycles. But AI for security, we've heard it time and time again, is such a critical infrastructure. And again, every single project you guys, Cristian, Hristo, and Hartej, what you guys are working on is just like, this is the infrastructure layer of what we are hoping to put trillions, hundreds of trillions of dollars on.
Yep.
And there's no way to say today it's a safer system.
Yeah, it's funny because people, when they say cybersecurity is now AI, actually the truth is that cybersecurity is being powered by AI. And because of AI, we're actually, as a cybersecurity industry, going from proactive to predictive. And that's exactly what we're focused on Mamoru in the digital asset realm. How can we go from real-time reaction to being proactive, and from proactive to one-day predictive using AI? And that's exactly what we're focused on.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's just jump into the news right off the bat, and we're going to cycle through a bunch of stories. The market's mixed. The last 7 days, some things are up, some things are down, but for the most part, it's been a crab walk week. Nothing major. There's been some major stories. Up and down 5 to 10% in the crypto world is relatively standard at this point. And I kind of do feel bad some days for all the ETF purchasers that just believed that they bought Bitcoin at whatever price, 60, 70K, and it was just going to kind of flow its way up to 120, 250, or whatever the pundits keep calling. But that's not what crypto does. I mean, there's a good chance we may see $30,000 Bitcoin again. It would be devastating. There'd be a lot of things that would have to happen to cause it. But there's no chance it would ever not happen. And so we really have to have this dynamic approach of, what is affecting the markets and how much do we want the markets to affect our projects and what we do. Are any of you guys traders? I don't think any of you guys are big traders in that aspect. Not crickets. That's exactly it. You guys are builders. You guys are the ones that are using this. On this chart right here, just as a real quick show of hands, which layers are you guys most bullish on? How about that? Cristian, I'll start with you.
I think a priority will be BTC, Bitcoin, like the main one, because it has like the great potential, which it's the trust, right? I think that's the utmost characteristic of a blockchain. And I think Bitcoin has the most one. But in terms of, let's say, path, probably I will put my bet on ETH, mainly because of the protocols that are being developing around it and how, let's say, the structure of the chain itself is being developed, like how much it gained in terms of, let's say, scalability and other issues which were behind a few years ago actually have been solved, and looking how others are actually building on this ecosystem. I think that there are like very two major chains which I'm very bullish on, but I would not probably forget about others which are quite in the beginnings in terms of like traction, or maybe the time they are currently in the stage more specifically. For example, I just found out about a few chains which are very parallel in terms of execution, which will allow other use cases maybe to run AI directly on chain, or maybe to process more data on that specific chain. So I would not exclude them, but for the moment, I think those two chains are like the biggest players at this moment in the market.
That's really good insight. The one thing I found is it seems like financial institutions are really kind of grabbed a hold of EVM. They like Solana, they like a lot of these other things, but they just seem really focused on like EVM is kind of becoming a standard.
Well, it's hard for them. It's hard for them and anyone not to focus on EVM more than just ETH. Like, Cristian said ETH, and I wanted to just upgrade ETH to say the entire Ethereum virtual machine era, because all the liquidity is there, and that's really what matters right now. And yes, there's a lot of very exciting even non-EVM layer ones that I am like personally very bullish on. But all of the attention of everyone, including the institutions, has to go where the liquidity is. And right now, literally all the liquidity is in the EVM ecosystem. And now all of a sudden there's some whispers about what could happen if some of that liquidity were to go into a tokenized BTC ecosystem with runes. We had ordinals first, but now all of a sudden there's this talk that what if we could have tokens on BTC with runes? I think personally, I believe that it hasn't been mapping out that great, but there's still immense potential. It's been clogging up BTC, but yeah, it has a potential to completely change crypto if it becomes a thing. Because of the power of BTC essentially being our mother. I still believe that. I'm not even a maximalist, but BTC is our mom, you know?
Yeah.
We all still follow.
You have to respect the OG.
You got to respect the OG, and then you still have to respect the macro, because we haven't decoupled from the macro.
Yep. It still leads the market. Hristo, where are people getting excited to deploy tokens?
Yeah, this was what I was going to say. With the risk of just echoing what everyone else is saying, I'm still seeing majority of the projects going for Ethereum, and mainly because what has already been mentioned on one side, which is liquidity, but on the other hand, there is just unparalleled infrastructure in terms of existing projects and what you can integrate with, whether it's lending solutions, swap solutions, whether it's Chainlink or whatever else have you. Pretty much it cuts a lot of the development costs, and there are just things which those projects can use right out of the box. I am definitely seeing surge in people exploring the so-called upchains or layer 3s, which are supposed to be there. To be honest, I am still somewhat skeptical. Let's see how this will go into this direction, but still, at least for new projects looking to launch, still Ethereum is king. If we exclude, obviously, meme coins, but this is, as usual, something more of a fleeting trend, in my opinion.
It's a big fleeting trend. I mean, Doge is kind of had a little bit of staying power, and meme coin and mania really is taking over Solana. So I mean, what do you just real quick, Hristo, when someone comes to you and says, I just want to replicate, a meme coin, like how does that conversation even go?
Usually the conversation goes by me telling them, guys, this is great, but I cannot really help you because there is no data which I can support you with. Meaning we cannot build a sensible business model. We cannot build a sensible data-driven tokenomics. Meme coins are mostly about hype and the way that you manage the community. So not a lot of work for a tokenomics expert there. So usually this is where the conversation ends. Not something that I can support the projects with.
Well, thank you for maybe at least one less meme coin out there. This is, I think, really interesting. So we've seen Uniswap, got a Wells notice last week. This week, it went not even a Wells notice, not even a lawsuit, just an immediate seizure and arrest of the founders of what is this? Samurai wallets. And I guess they had a mixing protocol, which to give a real quick understanding of why mixing is important. And I understand the concepts and I understand a bunch of these sides of these. There's the pluses and minuses of complete transparency on a blockchain. And, when I go and to a restaurant and I use my credit card, I'm doing that because I don't want them to I don't want to write a check. I don't want them to have any of my banking information. And even worse, if I had to do something like that and they could see the balance in my account, that's a challenge as well. As again, I don't know who I'm interacting with. I don't want to know who I'm interacting with. It's a one-time transaction. So there's a lot of reasons that make sense to mix. I remember I was in Switzerland and I wanted there's a hot dog stand literally that said pay with Ethereum or Bitcoin. And I literally am looking at this thing and there's people all over there and I go, I have no idea who has interacted with that wallet. And there's no chance I want my wallet to interact with that, with this random hot dog stand because I don't know who's interacted with it. And then I would suddenly be linked on the blockchain from there. So there's a lot of reasons why this exists. This is scary though. I mean, they arrested this guy in Spain, I think just Portugal, and dragged him right out. Let me go ahead and start at the bottom here. Hartej, how do you feel about this aggressive nature towards coders?
So I feel like when we're looking at Tornado or Samurai and the laws against self-hosted wallets, they're almost all a part of the same on how the state, in particular the United States, is attacking and handling the situation. It all comes down to control. And control in this sense means, can a judge order the assets seized or transferred? And that requires some sort of traceability. And anything that challenges this concept at scale is going to get shut down or backdoored. And if you want to challenge the state on either one, you got to be ready to win this war, which that war can only be won by actual decentralization from the get-go. Uniswap, being based in New York City, has done a really great job having proper decentralized principles while being American built, American run in New York City. Mind you, they just got slapped with a lawsuit by the SEC that we don't have a lot of details on, but states are usually okay with pseudo control if they can't directly transfer the asset, but they can blacklist it. That's okay with them. The judge can't order BTC moved, but they can order all the regulated institutions not to accept the tainted BTC. And this is how it's being played out. And I think, I'm not happy about the direction of any of this. And I do believe privacy is a fundamental human right. But, once you grow to a certain amount in this space and you enable too many privacy-driven transactions, you have to expect to fight a war.
Yeah. I mean, Cristian, you're a encryption, specialist. Like, you understand the need for privacy, I think, more fundamentally than any of us. Was there a mistake that they made?
I'm not sure that I'm in a position to say because I don't know exactly the details behind it. But I was thinking on the example that you just gave, right, with the privacy aspects. And I remember I had a discussion last year with the European Central Bank. It was a public consultation around the privacy aspects of digital euro, right? Because you have to maintain this characteristic of a cash payment even in the digital era, because imagine you have like tens of millions of dollars in your bank account. You just go and get a hot dog, like you pay like $5, right?
Yeah.
And the people next to you can be linked to that, let's say, store, and they immediately can see your balance, and you have a target on your back as soon as you made a payment, right? So I think privacy is still a very important aspect in every human life, in all the interactions that you could have. Now imagine that you could be a business and actually pay for your suppliers or for your employees, right? And there is some kind of secrecy right there, which is linked directly to the success of the business. So it goes in many, many ways, not necessarily on like the human right that interacts with another human. But on the other side, I think there is also, like, I think Hartej has said it very, very well. If you're up to a specific threshold, it's very funny to see that they just surpassed 10K BTC, and this got out. I think you have to maintain some kinds of rules which at least protects you as a founder or a key role into that project. And I have a bunch of examples, other privacy protocols which are building out there. And for example, one simple use case is that they're mixing another project, so not this one. They're mixing pools of funds, but every let's say money that gets in, it's get whitelisted or at least checked upon a list of sanctions or EML checks and everything else. So your actually coins will be mixed up with clean ones, and there is a different bucket with the ones that actually are, let's say, linked with other entities. So there are some solutions out there, but it's very hard to control them, and it's up to probably the team that manages everything to make sure that it's in place. I do believe there is some kind of compliant privacy out there, but it's not just found out yet. But the solutions are there. It's just when you combine policy with engineering or like product, it's a bit hard to match those under the same umbrella.
Before we start on our next topic, here's something really exciting. Everyone struggles with these really highly complex, intricate Ethereum names. ENS has a solution that's really game-changing for you. Revolutionizing your digital identity with ENS. Transform long, complex Ethereum name addresses into easy-to-remember names, safely, securely, and uniquely yours. Visit ens.app to get started today, and ENS welcomes you to the new internet. The immutability of blockchain is a blessing and a curse at times. Yeah. Hristo, do you have any, kind of thoughts on this? I mean, it is code. It's it needs to be adherence. But in the same sense, this seems relatively aggressive.
For me, it's quite interesting because recently we are definitely seeing a surge in projects looking to go into this direction, meaning the projects that come to us and that want to operate and submit private transactions. And pretty much there are two general groups of projects going there, and more likely three. So we have the projects which are just going as everything is up to now, saying, you know what, our transactions should be private. We just want to submit private transactions. There is the second group which are not focused on private transactions, but more like private interactions, meaning building interfaces where the transactions themselves are not private, but the way that you interact with the particular user interfaces. And finally, there is a third group, which is the most interesting, which are trying to build privacy protocols, which are still compliant with the regulation, and particularly regulation in the States, including a few big names, which I cannot mention, but it's quite interesting for me that obviously this is a topic, and obviously people both want to have private transactions, but also to be compliant at the same time. So maybe this is what we are going
Darknet, Starkware, Railgun. Who else? There's a couple others.
Yeah, Visa.
Yeah. Also another interesting one that enables privacy for on-chain trading and off-chain trading at an institutional level is Hinkle protocol. HINKAL. No direct affiliation.
Yeah, very interesting.
And I was going to add to that.
This is going to be
95% of global wealth and 65% of people are under the U.S. monetary system, and that includes KYC agreements with most of Europe and Asia. But you have parts of the Chinese economy and Russia and Iran and North Korea that are kind of sitting outside of this ecosystem. But the fact is that generally states want control over their money, and they want control over the money in their borders. So even if you're antagonistic to the US dollar, it doesn't mean that China would embrace private crypto. It's actually quite the opposite. China's in a rush to embrace CBDC, their own CBDC. Most countries around the world are in a rush to embrace their own CBDC, except for the United States.
Privacy is fleeting in a variety of ways right now. And China is absolutely leading the way on social scores and all this types of.
We're not too far behind them, though. We're pretty bad. We just passed Section 702.
It's terrible, horrible. I don't even want to get into. I've been trying to avoid as much as I can with U.S. politics unless it directly affects this. But yeah, the warrantless spying is hey, go for it, anything you want. This conversation is right now 100% being recorded by the NSA here in the United States for whatever reason. They can watch it on YouTube later, but now it's fair game.
Yeah, they're watching, they're listening, and we have to be okay with that. And that is the reality of it. I don't know what else to say. I don't think they should have voted in support of reauthorizing FISA Section 702. I think that people like Senator Mitt Romney and all these folks that are trying to remind us of 9/11 as a reasoning as to why they should be reauthorizing 702 is just fundamentally unethical, immoral, and the language is absolutely shocking that they used, and they're broadening the coercive nature of the power of the U.S. government to spy on Americans without a warrant. Turning your plumber into a federal agent spy against you is now legal based on Section 702. You can
the CIA was designed for foreign. To monitor foreign governments and foreign entities, and now it's turned around directly on its own citizens. But I think it really, pulling back to this story, this is why it's so critical. Is now the concept of being able to say, this is my money, I earned it, I paid taxes on it, I want to hide it, I don't want you to see it anymore. Because literally yesterday, we talked about it a little bit here, I don't have the story, they want to tax unrealized gains. It's a whole nother topic for another day that we can talk about. I don't understand how to pay unrealized gains. I don't know how to report that on my taxes. The fact that I had Bitcoin and what would I have done during the last bull? I had, $10 SOL that I had a large stack of. It went to 200, but I didn't sell it. I wrote it right all the way back down to $20. Was I supposed to pay taxes on something I never got the reward for because I'm a bad investor? Like, they could really, that's just insane to think about that, that this kind of stuff. So privacy is critical. There's rules. I do believe in OFAC, but I think that there needs to be some guardrails on that.
Yep, I agree. Privacy is fleeting, and it's becoming, you're now deemed a rebel to say privacy is a human right, increasingly.
It used to be like the commonality. So here we go. Let's jump into a little bit of politics. Not an endorsement for Mr. Kennedy, but I like a lot of the things he says. I think he kind of reaches into the left and the right. He's kind of seems to be a little bit of the middle candidate today. But this was interesting and relates to blockchain, is he said that he would immediately want to move all of the U.S. government's transactions and accounts to the blockchain. Literally, we're going to have 300 million eyeballs on the budget. This would be revolutionary for all citizens around the world, all humans. This would actually dynamically, I believe, reduce global wars and global unrest in a variety of ways. It would be an immediate benefit. And I would think that at some point in decades and decades from now, this is what we would want to see all governments that are beholden to their people manage and doing, because there shouldn't be, they don't need any secret programs from me. Don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I don't think Mr. Kennedy is going to make it, but I love the initiative to really talk about this. Hristo, I'll start with you. What's your thoughts when you see this?
My thoughts are quite similar to yours. Probably we will not see it within our lifetime. Unfortunately, I think it's an interesting initiative. I would definitely be interested to read a paper which explains exactly how this would work and what would be the controls, checks and balances, and so on. But yeah, to be honest, I have been thinking regarding this that sure, great initiative, but really hard to put into practice. So let's hope the person gets elected and we can hold him accountable to this to see how this would go.
Yeah. Cristian, how long would it take you to code this?
With the actual tools that are available, I think we'll not spend more like a month probably. Like, the technology is there, zero knowledge proof. We can actually put all of these things in a manner which is not hurting. I think domestically, it's a very good idea to have it very open, transparent, but in generally speaking, putting your budget on a paper and everyone can see it. I think it's a bad thing, like international, but domestically, I think it's a very good idea, and it could easily be done probably with zero knowledge proof, like in some rollups and stuff that could help, right? Being transparent, but at the same time to keep some levels of privacy, and will be very simple to verify for everyone. But again, sharing the same thoughts, I think, at least in my lifetime, I'm not sure if I will see it in any of the countries around the world.
I don't want to be mean, but I can't help but be mean. And I felt like when I saw this news, my instant reaction was maybe he wants to get shot like like JFK, because that's the only thing that'll happen if this becomes a reality. I'm really sorry to break it to you. You're going to get shot. And this is not like there's no room for corruption if this happens. So it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it would be a dynamic.
We could dream.
Yeah, I mean,
it's going to get him some votes.
That's the JFK. That's the other JFK speech. I have a dream. Never mind. That's Malcolm.
Yeah, I was born. If you were born and raised in the States and you understand U.S. history, you know where I'm coming from. Okay.
Oh, and that's why I said when I saw this, it's like,
I'm not even a conspiracy theorist.
The reason it's here, the reason it's here is because this is, Yes, there is not a single U.S. citizen that would not say that this is a thing that they want, and there's not a chance that the people in power would ever allow this to happen.
No way. But hey, it's going to get him some more votes, and he'll get talked about by some more crypto cold wallet holders, and that small populace of people are going to be really pumped about it. But in reality, it's dangerous talk by RFK Jr., to be honest. Dangerous talk.
Yeah. No, it's there. Continuing on with a little bit of this, CZ looks like he may be joining Mr. Bankman in jail. So I think it's really interesting that we have these two titans during the it's much shorter. He's clearly got some better lawyers, and he also knows how to not talk on social media about his crimes. But I think it's really interesting to see that the two titans of the last bull exchanges, Binance, FTX, Brian Armstrong at Coinbase it seems like, he's hiding for now. But it just seems like they really went after both of these guys. And to be clear, there was a lot of blame for CZ on the FTX collapse. Now we understand that has nothing to do with CZ. This is Bankman did his own malicious things. But in the same sense, had CZ not exposed or kind of pulled back on some of these things, FTX, who knows, may have been able to continue the swindling a little bit longer. I don't, again, I don't know enough about CZ. I know it was very clear in the trials that Sam did what he did. He broke those laws. Any thoughts on should CZ be going to jail, or is this just kind of closing another chapter?
The only thing I have to say about
Hartej, I'll start with you.
I think that these sentences are being drastically shrunk. So whatever you end up getting, you end up serving a much smaller sentence when it comes to jail. So I don't even think CZ will serve a full 3-year sentence, just like SBF is not going to even serve a fraction of whatever he was summoned. And I think the United States is trying to make a point on how they feel on their stance on their war against crypto.
So a little bit of the Martha Stewart treatment.
Yeah, they're trying to make a point about this is where we stand on crypto, and they're trying to push things away, and they're trying to make a really strong statement.
Yeah. Cristian?
To put it in a more positive way, it seems like you're throwing a party and everyone has some kind of a ticket that grants you the way to this party, and slowly everyone on the top levels of exchanges are getting this ticket, but it's looking weird. And at the same time, it's actually interesting to see how other non-US entities outside, or at least in the case of FTX, maybe it's not the case, but even that it was like based in not in US, like with a company entity, but it's curious to see that companies like Coinbase or others, which are like originated right there in US, don't have these kinds of issues, at least on the sentencing and like pronouncing amounts of jail time and so forth. Maybe there are some discussions around SEC and other cases, but it's curious to see that those inside US are not actually facing at this moment. Maybe because the framework is much better and much in control of the US, probably compared to other, but probably it's just a coincidence to see.
Interesting. Hristo, you, like I said, you one of, again, as a tokenizer, like you need listings on exchanges for there to be viability for your clients. Did you ever have any issues getting listings on any of these platforms, or did you see them doing anything, malicious in your interactions?
So, to be honest, first thing just to mention, I think that both of those actors, meaning Binance in the US and essentially FTX, clearly did illegal things, meaning I don't think that there is any kind of gray area here. So the US trying to set an example and saying that obviously this is not acceptable and this will not be tolerated, for me is not a bad thing in any way. I think that obviously bad actors need to be weeded out in order to, in order for the industry to be able to prospect further. Now, to be perfectly honest, I am not a huge fan of centralized exchanges. I have mostly had trouble with them and the projects that I've worked with. I know that this is mainly controversial opinion and one which goes against the general one. A lot of projects are looking to list on centralized exchanges because they believe that this brings speculation and added value to this. But my experience is that usually at the end of the day, there is a huge lack of transparency, the way that liquidity is managed, the way that where selling pressure comes from. And I've personally had experience with some of the big exchanges doing some shady things with tokens being listed there. So I'll be honest that I'm not a huge fan.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, and they do charge for listings quite a bit. So there's a lot of gamification that happens on the backside of this. So what's oh, I'm sorry, Hartej, did you have?
Nothing. No, go ahead. We can move on. The only thing I was going to end on saying is that I do find it a little bit suspicious that how things played out with CZ, because I think SBF spent millions and millions of dollars bad-mouthing CZ, trying to take him down prior to his house of cards completely collapsing. And I think that a lot of this wrath that CZ is facing has directly to do with the lobbyists that were hired by SBF, and they were hired using other people's money.
I completely agree. It's an entire shit show per se. I can cuss on my own show. So with all this stuff, as we jump over, the next halving is in 3.5 years. So we've got a few minutes to wait and deal with that one. The halving did happen, and it's kind of a non-event, mostly right when it hits. I think in general years past, it's about 3 to 5 months before you start really seeing the price impact. Because the miners don't like turn and burn and sell the same day usually, especially if they're financially healthy. But we have seen hash rates increase quite a bit. If you are just kind of a home miner that you kind of had a little rig running in the background, you're probably be losing money at this point just with the difficulty level going so high. I do know a lot of institutional miners. One of our sponsors is Marathon. So we very much believe in institutional green Bitcoin mining, which is a lot of what the big guys do. The home guys that are plugging in some old computers or some random ASICs they bought on eBay, you're not really helping much, but you can participate if you feel like it's a good thing. Are you, Cristian, how hot are you on, the mining industry right now?
Actually, I'm looking very interesting, not like industrially or at least from a professional point of view to make something in the space, but to understand how it's actually going and what's the direction that it's going towards to. It's interesting to see how the fees on the block have increased, especially on the day of the halving, maybe just an event for people like pumped for some movements in BTC markets, but it's in the same. Sorry?
It was mostly because of the runes.
Runes, right. That another interesting idea which I saw in the space was that people are trying to build a system where these fees are like increased just to make the ways that it's actually this halving is very beneficial because it's adds more fees to the system and everything else. But my interesting take on this is that looking on solutions like, I think Marathon, it's having an L2 which prioritizes the block space, and actually it's very interesting to see how that plays out, especially if you look on the EVM market with MEV and what's happening right there. Like the whole, even if you look on liquid staking or other things, they take percentage of that win into that LRT and SCT just because of the MEV. So if you take a few steps back and analyze how the things played out in the EVM space, I think having a look on this one, it's very interesting to see how it will play out in the future.
Yeah, I agree.
Amazing.
Since April 20th, $80 million was just made by miners and transaction fees out of the 100 million that they earned in rewards. And 50% of that was renewable energy, actually. But yeah. $100 million in rewards since 420 is not a joke. So I am envious of these miners, but it also means something is still really fundamentally broken.
Yeah, I mean it's a big heavy chain, I mean, let's be clear. It's the last major proof of work. I understand there's, Bitcoin Cash and some other, Litecoin things that run on proof of work. But, between Bitcoin and Ethereum's now moved to proof of stake. This is the last big major, chunking away, truly proof of energy is the way I like to, generally refer to it. It's like proof of power, to be able to make it happen and proof of work. Hristo, when you look at this stuff, you're so focused on other chains, again, EVM and everything else. If they can kind of solve a lot of the concepts needed to put tokens inside of the Bitcoin network and make it kind of a way, have layer twos rolling into a layer one, do you think that's something that you would be interested in, or are you kind of happy with the ecosystem and Bitcoin just needs to be Bitcoin by itself?
I would be interested, but again, maybe a controversial opinion. I'm really skeptical in the long term when it comes to the Bitcoin tokenomics. Obviously, first, when the Satoshi messages were released, I believe it was last year, this communication where he pretty much outright has said that the setup, the way that the halving works and everything else was pretty much guesstimate what he did there. And again, that when we look at the Bitcoin white paper, it's supposed that over time transaction fees are going to take over the mining rewards. And I'm really not feeling very confident on the sustainability for this setup in the long run. Obviously, there can be layer twos on top of that, but to be perfectly honest, I still really feel that we are in the MySpace area of the blockchains, and we still haven't seen the Google come along, probably. And definitely, yes, Bitcoin is probably the gateway for everyone into crypto, but at a certain point in time, I don't feel that this tokenomics is sustainable really long term.
Yeah, it's expensive. Hartej, how do you feel about, kind of seeing that much of rewards? Do you think it's sustainable, short term or long term?
No, it's definitely not sustainable. I mean, I think it was, I forgot who it was, but Fred Krueger or somebody put out a tweet that I really liked. They said they shouldn't call it the halvening, they should call it the tripling, because you're getting, instead of 6.25 block rewards, you're getting 3 and change, 3 and 18 BTC. And I was pretty pumped about runes. And then when I realized in order to enter some of these runes that are being dropped, we're talking about $20,000 of fees.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have very shady pre-mines, and it's meme coins. Runes are meme coins on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And meme
miners
coins
love it.
Miners definitely love it. I mean, I'm very jealous of my miner friends. I have a miner friend that just set up a very substantial mining operation in Nigeria. He's one of the biggest miners in Texas, and I'm very envious of my friend.
Yeah, there was no bigger cheerleaders for ordinals than the miners, going like, we don't care what it is, but please keep doing it. Because at the end of the day,
the original ordinal holders were the ones that got airdropped a magical number of runes. So it was just like this little inner party of people who already had ordinals. And
I saw it. I saw it when it was cheap. I still, I didn't FOMO. I'm still not going to FOMO. It's one of those things where I kind of, it's easy for all of us to jump on every project. I just don't like it. It doesn't feel right to me on Bitcoin. I think there's so many better uses and chains out there. If you want to do some sort of roll up of data into Bitcoin, which I know Marathon is doing and a variety of other things, I think that's great. But in the same sense, it's like, there's so many places for innovation. So I kind of struggle with continuing to try to, the square peg in a round hole per se.
Yeah. And I will say that there are a couple of layer ones that I'm watching that I believe are building the Apple of Web3 right now. Sui is on the top of my list as one of those teams. If I look at the Miston Labs core team, we're talking about people that spent the last 10 to 20 years at Meta, Apple, Google, and you look at the CEO, Evan Cheng, his Twitter profile says something along the lines of, I wrote code that runs on every cell phone in the world. And he's not lying. They're the level of prowess of the resumes of the people running the show at Mist and Labs speak for themselves, and we've been dealing with them directly. And I'm not. We fell in love with them when someone pointed us in the direction of the Sui Move programming language, and then we realized that the guy who invented that language, Sam Blackshear, is actually the CTO of this new protocol, Sui. And then that's how we went down this rabbit hole, like very like unbiased. We didn't have we weren't seed investors just trying to pump our bags. They're a very professional team.
The rate of innovation is going to continue to accelerate, and it's really exciting to watch. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Beyond Enterprises, the ultimate 360-degree partner for companies ready to embrace the power of blockchain in their business strategies. Beyond Enterprises stands out as a beacon of expertise with a blockchain-agnostic approach that has seen successful projects on Ethereum, EOS, and Arc. Guided by blockchain thought leaders and fueled by inspired advisors, the team has played a pivotal role in over 40 successful ventures spanning token generation events, security token offerings, exchanges, and more. From healthcare to travel, finance, and beyond, Beyond Enterprises has left a massive mark on diverse industries. Elevate your business strategy today with pioneers of blockchain integrations, Beyond Enterprises, trusted 360 partner. A little bit more Bitcoin news. We did see, the halving didn't really seem to have that immediate pump. But what we did see is having clear regulated pipes in and out of crypto or Bitcoin does have a drastic effect. We watched, right before the ETFs went live, I think we were sitting in the 30-ish range. I remember talking to an investor that wanted to put $1 billion, buy $1 billion, of Bitcoin, $1 billion of Bitcoin, and absolutely, was arguing over like fees. I'm like, dude, it's at 34,000. What you just, who cares about the, whatever this is. I got the call back from him after the ETF hit, and he thought it would go down, and it was about 40s in that point, and that finally in the 60s I got the phone call saying I fucked up, and I said, well, there's nothing I can do to help you now. But now here we have the same concept. Hong Kong is approving 205 Bitcoin ETFs, and this is coming. This is not are they going to do it or not going to do it? This is more liquidity, which is what any asset class needs to get to that those parabolic numbers. So, I don't know that much about the Hong Kong crypto culture. I hear great things. I've been so focused on, MENA and the EU and LATAM, as well as the US, that I haven't kind of focused on Asia. But I know you spend a lot of time there, Hartej.
The big player there to know is OSL. They're digital securities. It's OSL Digital Securities. It's a company under the OSL group. And they were actually selected by the China Asset Management and Harvest Fund Management to be the sub-custodian for the two approved Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs in Hong Kong. A friend of mine, Dave Chapman, is an Australian gentleman that lives in Hong Kong and is at the helm, or one of the people at the helm of OSL Group. And I think it's extremely exciting. I think the Hong Kong regulators, in terms of digital asset regulation, are by far ahead of any other regulator that I've seen in the world. They're very crypto native. And I think the Hong Kong local ecosystem is one of the world's most friendly, if not the world's most friendly for institutional digital asset investors. And they're going to have the most clear-cut regulations moving forward. And one thing I'll add is I think the Ethereum ETF is significantly more exciting for TradeFi and for Hong Kong and Wall Street and traditional finance than the Bitcoin ETF is. And I think that the tsunami effect and excitement once an Ethereum ETF hits the market is going to be far more than what we've seen with the Bitcoin ETF, which might be hard to believe. But I think that's a tsunami that's coming that I'm very excited for.
Can I argue a little on this one with you with the Ethereum? So here's my concerns. Number one, Bitcoin, let's just as it sits today, has no intrinsic value. You can't stake it. You can't, voting doesn't mean anything. It's essentially, Yeah, essentially. So on Bitcoin, it's kind of it's digital gold, store value, blah. Ethereum, this is an active, level 1 chain. Those the Ethereum tokens are server credits per se. They're being used for a variety of other things, but that's how you pay your gas. Like that's the only way you can pay your gas. You can't pay it in Circle, you can't pay it in Tether, you can't pay it in anything else. So it has to be usable for the chain. Gas fees are already so high, and the ETFs, as we've seen them, right now are not allowing for staking. If they do allow for staking, how much we're already at risk right now since they moved to proof of stake, that truly almost all of this is running on Amazon S3. So the centralization of the servers has kind of come in and down a bit. How much do we trust, the Blackrocks and everyone else that now holds, a majority of these tokens, which is what they'll do. They'll acquire crap tons of them. Now they have staking and voting power. We're kind of handing the keys to TradFi. Is that not a concern?
It's not about whether it's a concern or not. It's a matter of what is inevitable or not.
Okay.
I think that this is inevitable, just like the Bitcoin ETF. This is not in our hands. I'm not in favor of an ETF existing. I don't think buying an ETF is something I want to be buying. I'd rather buy the core asset and have voting rights. But there is a very large subset of people who prefer the method of investing of an ETF. And I think that there'd be more people inclined to invest into an ETF of ETH than Bitcoin. But I agree with everything you said. It just doesn't mean it's not inevitable.
So, Cristian, this, to me, when I saw, the Bitcoin ETF was essentially an IPO of a digital asset. It's coming to market, a lot of ETFs, but essentially you're like, hey, here's this digital gold. And now for the first time, it's available in the traditional market. So it was essentially, cryptocurrency that IPO'd. Now like we've learned a couple things. Number one, institutions do not want to deal with custody. That was one of the primary things. And two, they don't want to deal with the legal paperwork, and the fees, which is why they're doing this as well. They just go, look, Fidelity has it, or not Fidelity. They said no. But JP Morgan and these other guys, they run with this. So how, do we feel that the cryptocurrency market is just going to go live in TradFi and wrappers, or don't we want it to go the other way where we wrap the securities into digital currencies and put them on the chain?
I think the way to go, really, Jay, I think it's the opposite, like the second one, the latter that you mentioned, which is you take the real assets and bridge them actually in this space, which is like, I think it gives more possibility. And we are even seeing some of the, let's say, interactions, or at least functions in the Web3 space, which are not actually possible to do it at all in the Web2 space. And I will mention just one. I'm not sure how, like from a point of view of trading, how safe it is from regulation point of view, like flash loans and other stuff. But just picture it like the magic itself doesn't exist in Web2, and doesn't make sense to move the whole Web3 in Web2 just because of regulation and stuff. But my takeaway on this is that, first, I just saw that actually yesterday BlackRock ETF has just stopped or had zero inflow, which makes I think I saw a tweet actually today. It makes in the 10 strike of inflows along all the history of ETFs. I'm not sure if ETF of Ethereum will do that. One, because it's probably the ones which actually understand Ethereum might choose to pick it up, the core asset itself, as Hartej mentioned already. I'll do it myself as well. There is a gap, right? And if you don't capture yourself, the BlackRock or the others will capture for you. My concern actually with Ethereum, it's another one, which is disposal money enables things to build on top. And because people are running for the profits and for the multipliers on their investment, I'm a bit scared about the leverage that is being compounded. It was an example actually a few days ago with, I think it's, if you recall the project, the name Renzo, right? They're like building a restaking token protocol, and some things had happened and just some of protocols automatically depegged because of that. And now imagine what could happen if you like restake that token multiple times, what the puzzle looks like. And for me, it's a very similar picture with the one in 2007, 2008, which I'm not very keen to see it again. But probably because it's an open space and everyone could see it and arbitrage and make liquidation and everything, I have my honest, let's say, belief that this thing will not happen on Ethereum, but it's still a risk on the paper.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to
Hristo,
acknowledge that we have to acknowledge this 71-day streak of inflows into BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF.
huge.
It's the most successful ETF launch in the history of ETFs. So I think that speaks volumes, and it is the only ETF in history to put a 71-day inflow streak straight from its launch day. Top 10 of the longest inflow streak, and
Yep.
$15.5 billion collected in 71 days is not a joke.
Yeah, no. And, you know, my question to Hristo, who is a tokenizer, this is directly like contradicting, you know, what you're there to do is, if there was a legal framework to move securities, you know, truly move securities on chain, you know, especially in the United States, like, we wouldn't have time to talk to you. You'd be so busy. What's holding it back? Is it a custody issue? Is it a legal framework issue? Because it's not a technology issue.
Yeah, generally I agree with you that this is absolutely something which probably would be extremely popular, but I guess the issue here is really what has always been the issue with crypto, and for me this is the user experience and the way that people interact with it. So for me, like, getting somebody into crypto or trying to explain to them, you know what, if you lose your keys, you lose everything. So there isn't anything which you can do. And obviously, when we talk about securities, likely there has to be an entity which can reissue those securities and so on and so forth, because this is something which definitely needs to be there in the case of securities. But again, keep in mind that either if we go full towards the decentralization and the crypto part, it becomes too complicated. If we keep it on being easy for the users and something which would be accessible for my mother, for example, we are pretty much talking about a centralized solution again. So really finding where we need to fall on the spectrum, I think that this is really the complexity. So yeah, for me, this is the core problem that we need to solve.
So anyone watching this is next Tuesday, April 30th is when these 200 BTC ETFs go live. It will absolutely have a dynamic effect post-halving on supply constraints as well. So I'd be looking for this. Again, not financial advice. This is just funny. Come on. So in 2007, as Janet Yellen was, kind of the Federal Reserve chair, and she was talking about a number of random things. Somebody held up a buy Bitcoin, notepad in the background. That notepad just sold for $1 million at auction. I think it says, really this is a non-news story. I just find it's interesting. The Bitcoin community supports these types of things, which is exactly what it is, a Bitcoin gazillionaire. Just wanted to make a point, but it really does, I think, showcase a lot about the current state of the Federal Reserve versus what Bitcoin's initiative was, which was originally, kind of an attack on Wall Street. And now we're watching Wall Street adopt Bitcoin. So, a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I remember at the second Money 2020 conference, a friend of mine on stage said, he said, it's funny to see bulge bracket banks talking about Bitcoin because Bitcoin was designed to kill you.
Yeah. It went from down with the banks to Blackrock, please buy our coins. So it's a little bit of chaos and change there. Heritage, I'd love for you to kind of run through this one. I stole this from your Twitter. And I think that we really hear a lot, about, kind of, terrorism and crypto's use for money laundering and all these other things. And, someone buying a notepad for $1 million. I don't know. They may have known who it was. It may have been something. But I'd love to just kind of hear your thoughts around, this as we see BRICS, which includes Russia, moving towards a truly blockchain based economy.
Well, I'll start with the fact that Russia decided to invade its innocent neighbor, Ukraine. And after they invaded them, the United States imposed sanctions on a range of Russian financial institutions under the Executive Order 14024. And I think that it's a unique war that has been played, an economic war against Russians. And it's been interesting to see how Russians are using USDT Tether to evade global sanctions. There was a report released by Inca Digital, a really powerful digital asset data arm that works with almost every US regulator out there. And they investigated, 163 cryptocurrency trading platforms globally, and they came to the conclusion that 79 of them are allowing Russian nationals to buy cryptocurrency with varying KYC requirements and trading limits. And they came to the conclusion that a lot of have no limit on trading Tether for Russian nationals. And a lot of them don't have KYC for Russian nationals. And they named them in the report. And I would encourage anyone who's interested in the subject to go check out the report by Inca Digital. You can Google Inca Digital Russia Tether, and I'm sure it'll pop up as the first one. And there is complete truth to this, and it's good to see the truth come out from folks like Inca Digital. They're an open source intelligence company that gives comprehensive data and analysis for digital assets. So thank you, Inca Digital, for releasing this information, and hopefully this can help fight this economic war against Russia while they're waging a war killing innocent Ukrainians.
Yeah, I mean, it is to me, it goes back to one of the original stories we talked about, with RFK. Just put everything on the blockchain and it'll be transparent. We're seeing BRICS, which is China, Russia, South Africa, and a variety of others, India, wanting to move to a blockchain-based economy, using a new stable coin that they haven't announced yet. Saudi Arabia is very involved in this now. How do we feel that the world will change if there's kind of the concept of these sanctions truly goes away? Again, OFAC's a real thing. I respect it. And that's where we are. But when we kind of say no to this, we're creating different global economies where there's no ability to have sanctions. Do we feel like it's kind of a little bit of a Pandora's box on this, that it would have been better to leave them on the SWIFT and control them versus what we're doing today?
It's debatable. I feel like this was a step towards making their lives more difficult, and I'd argue overall it has. But you can also argue the latter, which it has accelerated them into a path of independence and sovereignty. And as people that are crypto native, we can see the positives of that as well. But I can also see why the U.S. wanted to try to fight whatever war they can with whatever puzzle pieces they have.
Yeah. Well, I think the one thing we can all agree on, we hope for peace here very soon. And we're going to wrap up this this conversation here. And I want to give everyone a second to talk about where to find them, where to kind of see the projects. So Cristian, I'll start with you. Where can people find you if they want to harass you and know more about all your super cool shit?
So I'm on Twitter, Alpha Christie, it's my tag. You also can search me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active, so feel free to drop my message if you want to chat or something. OMNIA Protocol is the project which I'm building. We can find it on Twitter, on Telegram, on LinkedIn, no matter where you are, or just type omniatech.io and you'll find our website. And yeah, one closing thoughts, it's keep the eyes on the 30th of April to see how those inflows will happen. And that's my takeaway. Thanks a lot for the info and all the discussion shared. I do appreciate a lot the time on these podcasts.
Awesome. No, and it is absolutely there. Tuesday, I put a note on my calendar to watch and see what happens. Hristo, when someone's ready to launch their shitcoin and they go to someone else, that's fine. But when they want to launch a real project, how do they find you?
Yes, this was what I was going to say. Please, only real projects, less meme coins. It's funny because right as you were talking, I got a message like, Hristo, we are launching a meme coin. Can you help us? And I need to reply right now that, sorry guys, not. But in case you have a real token and which has, or you want to have utility, you can reach out to me. I am very active on LinkedIn. If you just type in Hristo Piyankov for FinDaS Tokenomics, we post daily on topics of tokenomics and various statistics, or just visit our website, findas.org. and book a free consultation with us. I like to chat with our projects, so please feel free.
Awesome. And Hristo, for clarity, I do always keep my Beanie Babies nearby, just so that whenever I'm looking at some new protocol and someone's saying, oh, that we can all just remember that this is a cycle that continues on and on again. And at one point, like I said, these are really memorable to me for a reason. Is I bought them after the big Beanie Baby crash of, like, I don't know, what was that 03, 05 or whatever the case was, where they were literally going from, like, this one here is really cool. So this one there's still listings where people paid over $20,000 for this little fucking thing right here. The bear is also, whatever the case is, I was buying these for $1 a pound at the end because I had some kids. I go, well, fuck yeah, I want Beanie Babies for this thing. So I have bins of Beanie Babies that at one point were worth millions of dollars, and now they're like the dogs chew them up. So I think it really is important what you do, that you are creating something that exists, forever, that has intrinsic value. And so I appreciate you saying no to the Beanie Babies. That being said, if you do want to launch Beanie Baby tokenized memes, I think everyone on this call will be behind that as well.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you for for yWhales. I think that it's enormous value, but yeah, not anytime soon with the Beanie Baby. Sorry.
That's okay. We'll find somebody. Hartej, so much knowledge, so much working on. How are you getting any sleep?
I'm getting sleep, man. I'm averaging 7 hours a night. I got my Whoop band on. It's measuring it. Yeah, you're whooping too.
I do the Fitbit. I am 6 hours. If I can get 6 hours, I don't get to sleep in like you do.
Well, I'm trying to get 7. I usually get 6 actually, but Whoop is telling me get my 7.
Okay.
But yeah, you can find me on Twitter. Just my first name. Unfortunately, I have a little underscore at the end of it, so it's Hartej with the stupid underscore at the end of it. But you'll find me. I'm there. Even if you type in just my first name, there's not that many Hartejes in the world. You'll probably find me. I'm the only crypto one. And you can find me on LinkedIn by typing in my first name as well. I actually got my first name with no characters at the end of it. Hartej. I'm also hartej@gmail.com. I was early. I try to just get my first name everywhere.
What did you get on Warpcast? What did you get on Warpcast?
Of course, I got Hartej on Warpcast.
There you go. I got my initials. I got JVS on Warpcast.
But you know what's whack? AirChat. AirChat doesn't let me have a 6-character. It's making me add more after my name. Like they're saying 6 characters is not long enough for AirChat. And now on AirChat, I'm Hartej AI.
If anyone is watching this that can help Hartej with a special name on AirChat, that would be very
Naval,
helpful.
Do me a favor, Naval. Please. I know you watch yWhales. Naval.
Yes. yWhales, thank you all again for your time. This is another one in the books. We'll see you guys all next time. And again, thank you again to all my co-hosts today. Talk soon.
All the best. Thanks.